Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger. And today is Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, and for parents out here, at least in the Pacific Northwest, and maybe out here on the East Side, it is a big day because school is ending. And if you've got kids, they are either already home. My youngest is staying home. It's a half day today, and it's kind of a nothing day. So he's decided he'd rather just hang out at home. He's still sleeping. It's 8 a.m. and he may wake up at any moment. So there's a chance you're going to get during the live show just a blank screen for a few minutes while I go help him get settled in the morning if he does wake up. But for any of you that have kids and are bracing for that transition to the summer months, I feel it. I feel you. I'm actually looking forward to it. I did not have to set my alarm this morning. Of course, I was still up by 5 a.m. anyway, but there's something really nice about knowing that you don't have to get up bright and early to get the kids off to school. So that's a good thing. And we will see what the summer brings. It has been a little bit, I don't know, man. It's been a little bit gloomy weather-wise the last few days. I think that's about to turn, and we're going to get some really good weather. And as I mentioned to all of you, if you guys have followed along before, that starting Friday, the shows are going to be coming out pre-recorded. So starting this Friday, the shows will all be shows that I've already done because I will be out traveling Glacier National Park, Banff, Lake Louise, all that kind of stuff with the fam, having some fun. But I wanted to make sure you guys had content even while I was away. So I've got one more extra show to record, but you should be able to go on the channel, the YouTube channel now, and see all the different topics and content that we've got. If you are already a Suite Level YouTube member, some of those videos you already could watch if you choose to. Up to you if you want to take advantage of seeing them early. Otherwise, for everybody else, you'll get one new video each day starting at 8 a.m. Pacific time every morning, starting on Friday. And before I get to the topic of the day, which is we didn't really get a chance to listen and talk about the press conferences from Devon Witherspoon and Jaxon Smith-Njigba last week. And I thought there were some interesting notes in there, and last day of minicamp. And so I want to take a moment to kind of play those back. Maybe you did hear them, maybe you didn't, but we're going to take a moment. I cut up some stuff. We'll listen to it. We'll talk about it in a bit. Before we do, there's a couple things that I did want to bring up. So if you, I assume you all have heard that Brandon Aiyuk posted on Instagram a video of him talking with Jaden Daniels, basically saying, man, they don't want me back. And this, the implications are that this is related to his contract negotiation and that the 49ers, have told him that they don't want him back. I think that's highly unlikely. But we did hear prior to this Instagram post yesterday morning that contract negotiations were essentially stalled, dead, not moving forward. And it's not that surprising. Most contract negotiations of this caliber do not really get completed until a deadline, until the very last minute. And so we'll see what that is in this case. I don't expect that Brandon Aiyuk will report to training camp. I think he will take the fines. He might not even play going into the regular season. He may force them to make a move ahead of that. And so I think this is obviously a story that Seahawks fans are going to continue to monitor, as well as 49ers fans. It is worth noting that the 49ers open up at home against the Jets. Could be a tough game if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. Then they go to the Vikings, which should not be a tough game with or without Brandon Aiyuk. Then they go to LA to face the Rams in week 3. Then they host the Patriots. So, I mean, I think their first 5 games are not that challenging. The Rams game and the Jets game are probably the 2 that stand out. They play the Cardinals in week 5. But there's a chance, I mean, this is really, really pushing it, but there's a chance if Brandon Aiyuk wants to hold out, I believe it's usually week 8 before you lose your season and basically would have to still stay with the 49ers. It would not toll your contract. It's either 6 games or 8. It used to be 8 games. Maybe it's 6 games. I don't know, something around there. But let's say it is 6 games. Either way, guess who the 49ers play in their 6th game of the season? That would be the Seahawks. So there is a outside chance that Brandon Aiyuk holds out, that he does not come to camp, that the 49ers do not bend on their contract offer, and that he holds out into the regular season, and that he holds out as long as he is able to before his contract requires him essentially to show up, or he'll just have to do this all over again next year. There's a chance that that would mean he would miss the game against the Seahawks. So that is obviously very future, very a lot of ifs, ands, all that kind of stuff, but something just to keep in mind. And how good is Brandon Aiyuk? Well, he's very, very good. Brandon Aiyuk, depending on what metric you want to look at, is the best receiver in the NFL, the second best receiver in the NFL, third. Like he is in the top 5 of best receivers in the NFL. Great route runner, gets open, good hands, tough after the catch. So he's kind of a complete package. And if you're interested, I am, so I'm going to look it up. If you look at target distribution for the 49ers, obviously everyone talks about Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Brandon Aiyuk for good reason. But as far as targets go, Brandon Aiyuk was number 1 in targets with 105, which isn't a lot of targets. And by the way, that's part of why I think he's been looking to move on. He had 105 targets. George Kittle had 90, Deebo Samuel had 89, and then Christian McCaffrey had 83. So it is a meaningful, it's a very meaningful loss if he is not on the roster. Now they have Ricky Pearsall that they've added, and they like Juwan Jennings and they re-signed him, but I don't think those guys are really comparable in a lot of ways to Brandon Aiyuk. And if we go and look at one other thing, I'm going to pull this up real quick. So as far as where Brandon Aiyuk ranked as in targets in the NFL, I mean, it is way down this list, folks. I mean, he ranked 36th in the NFL in targets. Jacoby Myers had more targets than Brandon Aiyuk. Trey McBride, who's a good player, but a tight end, had more targets than Brandon Aiyuk. Zay Flowers, a rookie, had more targets. So this is the issue for the 49ers. It's the issue for Brandon Aiyuk. If you were paying attention post Super Bowl, Brandon Aiyuk's girlfriend had posted something on Instagram about the last time that they had played in the Santa Clara Stadium. One of his friends had posted something implying that they were gone, that they weren't coming back. I think the Brandon Aiyuk and his crew, like his group of friends and family, I think they're all like want to turn the page and are basically, they're not inclined to come back to the 49ers. The 49ers don't want to lose Brandon Aiyuk. They know they're in a Super Bowl window, or they believe they're in a Super Bowl window. And so they're trying to keep him. And yet the 49ers had some easy opportunities to do that if they really wanted Brandon Aiyuk back and for the long term. They could have signed him after the offseason, but they've waited and waited and waited. And what's happened? The wide receiver market has done nothing but skyrocket. I mean, what are the deals that have signed? What are the deals that have signed this offseason at the wide receiver position? Let's recap this real quick. Justin Jefferson signed for $35 million a year. That's the crown jewel. AJ Brown was extended $32 million a year. Amon-Ra St. Brown extended for $30 million a year. Jalen Waddle was extended for $28 million a year. Jalen Waddle is nowhere near Brandon Aiyuk. Was there anyone else that signed? Did Devonta Smith sign this offseason? I can't remember. Nico Collins signed for $24.2 million. Michael Pittman signed for $23 million. It's just, they really blew it as far as if they wanted to re-sign him, if that's a legitimate thing as what they want to do. They missed that chance to get a reasonable, a more reasonable price. And so now they're stuck either trying to get Aiyuk to accept a lower price or have him play his 5th year on this contract for whatever he's willing to play, however many games that is. That might be half a season. And then watching him walk and getting a 3rd round comp pick in 2026. So if that's really where this is headed and the 49ers believe that's true, then it starts to become more realistic for them to make a trade. And if you really pay attention to the moves that they have made so far, they have not extended. They've not really made a legitimate offer to Brandon Aiyuk yet. The last report I saw was $26 million a year. There's no reason Brandon Aiyuk would take $26 million a year when Justin Jefferson just got $35 million a year and Amon-Ra St. Brown just got $32 million a year. Brandon Aiyuk is not going to say, yeah, I'm going to give you a discount to get fewer targets. And I just don't think that's going to happen. And so then they draft Ricky Pearsall in the 1st round, who I really like, but I think was a reach in the 1st round. But that's a real indication again. Okay, well, maybe they're giving them an opportunity to move on from somebody. I always thought that was going to be Deebo Samuel. He's older, I think more injury prone, not as talented as a receiver. He's a very talented offensive player, but I thought he'd be the guy they'd move on from. Now, I don't know, man. I think there's a question here that this could happen. And our friend Grant Cohn was putting out a trade idea yesterday that, building on this idea that Brandon Aiyuk was talking with his buddy Jaden Daniels, the quarterback for the Washington Commanders, in this Instagram post, that the Commanders are a logical trade partner and that the trade that they would consider doing is Brandon Aiyuk for Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. And in some ways, that does make a lot of sense. Grant Cohn's perspective there is that the 49ers are not really going to want to just get draft picks, that they are trying to win now. And so this idea that you trade Aiyuk for a 1st round pick isn't necessarily the most logical thing, because the 49ers are trying to win this year. And so in that case, getting a guy like Terry McLaurin, who is a very talented receiver in his own right, back in that deal, who's under a contract for a more reasonable, he's $23 million a year, but McLaurin's contract runs through 2025 at least, so another year on that deal. He's 29 years old. He's older than Brandon Aiyuk. He is not quite the same player, but he's an excellent receiver who's had really crappy quarterbacks throwing to him. It makes some sense. I mean, it definitely makes some sense for the 49ers. If you're a Commanders team, I wonder if that makes as much sense. I mean, if it's straight up, then you're getting a better player, a younger player. And so, yes, you're getting better and you probably do that. But I do have to assume that part of what the Commanders would want is to pair Brandon Aiyuk with Terry McLaurin for their young rookie quarterback. So, we'll see. I think this is just one that is certainly got a little steamier over this weekend. And I had thought, I don't think Brandon Ayuk's going to get traded. I think he's going to play. The maneuvers of both of these sides indicate this is going to be a bumpy ride for sure. So I think that there's a real possibility it could happen. All right, we got a super chat from Garth Knight. Thank you for the super chat, Garth. He says, Brian, as a Hawks fan, would you rather the Niners spend on Aiyuk or trade him? As a Hawks fan, I hope they sign him up with a holdout. Yeah, without knowing the trade, it's hard to say. I think the Seahawks win either way here eventually. I think Brandon Aiyuk, if he ends up requiring a $30+ million a year deal, they just signed, upped McCaffrey's number. They are going to have to pay Brock Purdy, $55, $60 million a year starting soon. We've already seen the thinning out of this roster for the 49ers start to happen. Their defensive line is not what it once was. So the more resources that they have to commit, the less depth they're going to have, the less dominance they're going to have across the board. In some ways, them getting a first-round pick would be a really good thing for him, for them. I think it all balances on this notion of like, are they really going to win a Super Bowl this year? And the assumption they're the odds favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm not sure that their window's still open. I mean, it's open to some extent regardless. They're the most talented roster in the NFL. I have a feeling they're going to find out that the defense is not what it was. We'll find out about when Dre Greenlaw comes back, but I think that's a big loss. We'll find out about this defensive tackle group for them. I think that Malik Collins and Javon Hargrave are going to be one of the most porous run defending defensive tackle duos in the entire NFL. I don't think they have an answer. For the run game in the middle of that line. And I also don't think Leonard Floyd is a good run defender. So 3 out of the 4 defensive linemen are not just league average run defenders. They're like some of the worst run defenders at their positions. And the run defense was already an issue for the 49ers last year. So I think that's a real problem. And then, we're just going to have to see about Trent Williams. I mean, he's the fulcrum. So does he get injured more this year? Does his slight erosion of play take another step forward in his age 36 year, whatever it's going to be? So part of me, if I was a 49ers fan, which I'm the farthest thing from it, but part of me would already want the team to be starting to build around Purdy for their next ascension and start to stockpile draft picks. Like, they're right at the precipice on this of like, what's the right strategy? I think it makes a lot of sense to try to win it this year. They're very talented, but not a lot has to go wrong for them to not win it this year, then be stuck with a lot of higher priced veteran players, a thinner roster, and not as much draft capital to do anything about it. I think Purdy's a guy that they're going to have for a long time. I think he's a good player. I'm not among the people that thinks that he is a, you know, an illusion, a mirage. I think, unfortunately, I think he's very good, but they're in a very, very odd transitional moment for that roster and how they're going to build it. And we'll just see. So I'm kind of just back here with popcorn watching because anything that causes challenges with that team makes me happy. So that was more than I planned to do on the Brandon Aiyuk news, but I did want to touch on that a little bit. All right. So what I did want to talk about today was some of the sound from the Seahawks 2 first-round picks from last year. And we know a lot about Devon Witherspoon and the year he had. I think there's people that honestly forget that the Seahawks had 2 first-round picks last year and that one of them was Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and that he had, some people call it a bad year. I don't think he had a bad year. I think he had a year that was not quite up to expectations. And this is a huge second year for him. I think there's a potential that he is one of the breakout players in the NFL this year in his second season as part of Ryan Grubb's offense. And so both of those guys had press conferences last week. They had some things to say that I thought were worth, replaying, talking through it a little bit since we didn't cover it last week. And in order to do that, I'm going to play their sound. And as I've said a bunch of times, this is as loud as I can make it during the live video show. I will turn this into an audio version for Patreon members immediately following. That is where I boost the audio. That is where I equalize it so you can make sure you hear it. It's also ad-free. So if you're getting interrupted with ads and you want to get rid of those, patreon.com/hawkblogger. Get all the audio versions of this pod ad-free and with nice sweetened audio that is easy to listen to. Not to mention, doesn't drain your battery by having YouTube playing while you're walking around or whatever. So give patreon.com/hawkblogger a try. You will not regret it. We got a question from one of our YouTube members, and I happen to know this guy a little bit. His name's Josh Cashman, and he wants to know, are you higher on JSN or Byron Murphy? That's a good question, Josh. I am higher on Byron Murphy because for me, positional value wise, I think defensive tackle has a much larger potential impact on your overall roster than wide receiver. Now, I think analytics would disagree. That's fine. I think analytics is a little bit black and white with a lot of things. What I see when I watch football is how well you play inside has such a massive ripple effect on everything else that you do on your roster. And if Byron Murphy can be the player that I think he can be, which is extremely disruptive in the middle, he can single-handedly affect the Seahawks' chances to win every single game. And so for me, I think it's a little harder for JSN to be able to have that kind of impact game in, game out, or play in, play out. But if I had to bet who is going to have bigger numbers this year, JSN. Like, I think JSN has a chance to be the Seahawks leading receiver this year. And so, yeah, that would be my pick between the two of them in terms of who I'm higher on. Josh follows up by saying, true, the McVay video sold me more than anything that Seattle could say. Yeah, it's true. Like when somebody talks about your player and wanting them and how good they are versus your own team trying to tell you that, it is nice comfort for sure. All right, so this is the first bit I've got from Devon Witherspoon, who had a fantastic rookie year. First comment here or question was around, how comfortable is he with this defense? So here you go from Devon Witherspoon. So that was Devon Witherspoon saying that they've gotten the defense down pat now. Like they're getting. It's going to sound very stupid for me to say. I'll say it because you'll enjoy hearing it. But he said they're getting their swag with it. It sounds just as good when I say it as when he says it. But seriously, he's the guy that Mike Macdonald has clearly mind melded with. And there's a sound I wasn't able to pull it before the show. Oh wait, you guys weren't able to hear that. Hold on. I was sharing the wrong tab. Hold on. Let's do that again. My bad. Reset. Here is Devon Witherspoon talking about his comfort with the new defense. All right. Let's try this again.
We starting to catch our swag with it, add our own little flavor to it, but like we getting comfortable with it real fast, faster than what we thought we was. But yeah, we kind of getting it down pat now.
All right. Hopefully you guys heard that. Yeah. I think you guys heard that. I was sharing the wrong tab before, so you should have heard that. Anyway, so that was Devon Witherspoon saying that they've got it down pat a little bit now, and yeah. Anyway, my point was that Mike Macdonald has, from the very first moment, talked about Devon Witherspoon. He has talked about the fact that, kind of tongue in cheek, but he had a smile on his face, that he had been sending Devon Witherspoon texts. Even this is like for his first month, just basically kind of giving him crap about plays that he had left out on the field, that maybe some things that he didn't run quite the right way. And now that you fast forward all the way to now, the interplay between those two looks special. You've got a special play caller in Mike Macdonald, and you've got a special player in Devon Witherspoon, and they're enjoying each other, and they're just both uber talented. The potential here is off the charts. It is off the charts. We're going to hear some other sound from Witherspoon in a second, but I get super excited about when you have a great player who's also very smart and becoming a leader and is young and is exactly at the position, the middle of the defense, where your defensive coordinator excels at highlighting guys and needs someone great to make it all work. I mean, this could be a really, really big deal. Not super surprising, but I'm just excited about that. This next clip asks Witherspoon about how much this defense will put a strain on offenses. And here's what Witherspoon said.
I mean, well, you watched the Baltimore tape from last year, so I mean, we plan on building on that and just trying to do it a little bit better in our own style. So it's finna be fun this year. Just wait on it.
That is him talking about. You want to know how good the defense is going to be? You saw Baltimore last year. That was pretty good, and he's like, we're trying to build on it, and it's going to be fun this year. Just wait. So he's feeling good about that. And I mean, there's been questions at some point about whether this is going to be the Baltimore defense, or Mike Macdonald's going to adapt it to Seattle and the personnel he has. I mean, there's a lot of indications it seems like it's going to be pretty similar to what they've done in Baltimore, given what Mike Morris has said. There's a few, I'm sure it's not going to be exactly the same, but it sounds like it's the same basic scheme. There's a question to Devon Witherspoon about how his role will change heading into year 2 and heading into, a new defensive coordinator, new defensive scheme.
I mean, well, that's up to coach. It depends on how my role gonna play out. I mean, we're gonna do a lot of different things with me, with a lot of other people as well. So can't get into what we're gonna do, but yeah, the big picture of it.
What'd you like?
So what Witherspoon there is talking about the fact that they're gonna do a lot of different things with him, and he also mentioned they're gonna do different things with other people, but he's not gonna get into it. He's pretty close to keeping it close to the vest, and not surprising, but he knows that they're going to do a lot of different things with him. And that you'll hear in a clip a little bit later. This is a guy that's just got a Swiss Army knife of skill sets, of skills. And he's finally in a position where he's going to not only be able to put those to use, but have a coach that's going to put him in position to amplify each one of those skills every play, every game. So I just I love hearing that from JSN. And this is kind of a related question. So this is like someone asked, what do you like about playing nickel? And this is where he gets to talk about the skills that he likes to utilize.
Everything. You get more involved in the run game, blitz, text games that we running with the D line, pass game. Like you get a little bit of everything. So that's why I like nickel.
Right? I mean, I still remember people saying, "Oh, nickel is a we drafted a nickel corner with the number 5 overall pick. What are we thinking? Like this guy's already a bust." That literally was a conversation last year. And when you see Devon Witherspoon's skill set in action, the threat of him being a blitzer is as big of a threat as any nickel corner in the NFL. And it absolutely is a problem for offenses because he is as likely to cause a failure for the offense as a blitzer as he is to do it as a corner in coverage. And also is very adept at doing it in the run game and coming up and supporting the run. So it's almost like having a extra pass rusher, like an extra elite pass rusher on the field at all times that you never know when he's going to activate that pass rush capability. And he does such a good job of disguising it. I will give a plug for one of the videos I recorded that you'll see this next week while I'm out, but I did my favorite secondary plays of the year last year. And one of them was, his first sack against the Giants, and his just ability. That was an eye opener for me. I was like, oh, so he's one of those guys that can really time up his blitzes. He can not give it away. And I see so many other players, like it's so common for these guys just to give away where the pressure is coming from, and quarterbacks being able to adjust before the snap. The fact that he has enough confidence in his ability to read the play, read the snap, and time his blitz just makes him a huge weapon in the pass rush. And so I'm really, really excited about to see what he can do with even more, another year of knowledge, another year of experience, and with defensive staff that's going to help him see things that he might not have seen on his own. Next thing here from Devon Witherspoon. This was interesting. It was about how much Ravens film did he watch, and think about this in regards to some other players that have been asked about what they watched on tape from last year.
Watched a good amount of it. I just continue to go back over tape and see how they played it and what were they thinking in certain situations and stuff like that. So I've been watching a lot of it from last year.
So that's Devon Witherspoon saying that he's watched a lot of Ravens tape from last year, and he keeps going over it to see how they play certain things. Compare that to some other players who have basically said, "Yeah, I haven't watched what Ryan Grubb's offense was last year. I haven't, maybe I haven't paid attention to as much what the Ravens did last year." Devon Witherspoon, when you marry that kind of talent with that kind of attention to detail and desire to be great, good things usually come. So I thought that was interesting. Question here about what does he want to do better in year 2? And I think his answer was exactly the answer that I wanted to hear.
So, first of all, I want to play all game in the whole season. Missed a couple games last year, so I'm trying to make sure I get through the whole season healthy. And then I'm just really trying to build on my year. Like I left a lot of plays out there on the table that I could wish that I had back. So just trying to make those plays this year.
Yeah. So I mean, the number one concern with a player like Devon Witherspoon will just always be durability. He hits hard, he plays hard, he is not the biggest framed body. And so, knowing that that's in his mindset, hopefully that's led to, hitting the weight room, getting his body as right as possible for what's a grind for the NFL season. Next thing here was some comments about his first round partner, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and what he's seeing from him and what he expects from him coming into year 2?
Compared to year 1.
Just a big amount of growth. The way they utilize him now in this offense, he's just gonna be a real special player. Like, I can't wait to see what he do for sure.
Quick one there, just basically a lot of growth, and that the way, I mean, he did mention the way they're utilizing him in this offense, which I think is a little bit of a comment about how he was utilized last year, and that he's just going to expect a lot of growth. And I think was there anything more on that one?
You mentioned health.
No. Okay. So next comment there was around Rayshawn Jenkins that I wanted to bring up. So, he had an opportunity earlier on that kind of prompted him to talk about the rookie cornerbacks. He did not. And I do think that that's a little bit of an untold story so far from OTAs. We didn't hear the name DJ James or Nehemiah Pritchett once from anybody. And we did hear about Devon Witherspoon making plays. We did hear about Trey Brown making plays. We did hear, I think I heard Lance Boykin making plays. I did not hear a single statement about either of the rookies making plays. Worth being aware of. I do touch on this in another one of my videos I talk about in terms of training camp battles, but just pointing out, I'm not going to play that sound, but he did not talk about the rookies. Doesn't mean that they're doing poorly, but if they were doing really, really well, I think they would have come up. So then he was asked about Rayshawn Jenkins and how he can help. And this is what Devon Witherspoon said about that.
Just his vet mindset, like the way he see the field, the way he could just coach you through things that he done already been through. That right there helps me a lot because he put me in a position, like, if I don't see something, he might see it and he tell me within a play, certain things like that. So having that vet behind you is like definitely a big part of my success.
So that was Devon Witherspoon talking about Rayshawn Jenkins, and as you've heard, he's not particularly loquacious in his answers. He's pretty tight-lipped with a lot of this stuff, and he had a longer answer there. He did talk about how Rayshawn Jenkins is helping him see things he might not see, and it's great that as confident as Devon Witherspoon is, he's taken in knowledge from everywhere, whether it's coaches, players, tape, his own studies, all that kind of stuff. And Rayshawn Jenkins is a guy that has made an impact already, and I think is a guy that people are kind of underestimating in terms of how I think important he's going to be for this defense this year.
How important is it for you to build chemistry? Because when we see you scrimmage,
so I'm going to skip that part. Next is some questions about his coach. And he smiles when you mention Mike Macdonald the way Mike Macdonald smiles when you mention Devon Witherspoon. So this next comment, you imagine the big smile on his face. The question here is, how is Mike Macdonald as a person?
He cool people, man. Coach different though. Like he a brain guy. So he very smart and intellectual. So it's like the way he builds defense is not natural or normal around the league. So that's what makes him different.
He's almost nerdy.
Yeah. Nerdy for sure. Nerdy for sure. But it's in a good way though, like his own way. And I think that's what makes him who he is.
You say it's different.
I think those are some of the sound bites that made it around already. But as Devon Witherspoon saying, Mike Macdonald's different. He's smart. Everybody talks about him being smart. And then it's like nerdy. He's like, yeah, he's nerdy, but in a good way. And here's the thing, folks. I don't think anybody would point at the Seahawks for the last 10 years and say, man, that is a smart, heady team. Like, you can say it is a passionate team, a high effort team, a consistent team, a well-coached team, depending on how you perceive that. Like, there's a lot of things people would say. I don't think almost anybody would have described the Seahawks as smart during this time. I think there were dumb challenges. I think there were dumb game plans. I think there was lack of adjustments. There's like a lot of things that just weren't what you would, like the analytics, utilization of analytics has been slow and I think clumsy. So I'm lapping this all up. I mean, give me all the smart Mike McDonald, the smart Ryan Grubb, all that kind of stuff. Give it all to me. I'll take it all. But he talked about how he's different, and he goes on to talk a little bit more about, well, what makes this defense different. And here's what Devon Witherspoon had to say about it. It's like, hey, you said that he builds his defense different. What do you mean?
Build defense is different. How so?
Like I said, the way he structured his defense is like you would never know what he's gonna run. Like one thing may look like something, and it's completely not. So the way he built it.
Your team first guy. Do you have any?
So that was him talking about the fact that he structures things in a way, and you think it's one thing, and it's completely different. And you're going to hear on the other side when I share some JSN sound that this is coming out on both sides of the ball. It's the way the defense is pre-snap disguising is one of the biggest stories. And the fact that it's already showing up is a huge deal. And so I want to switch over and play some JSN sound. And in fact, I think I'm going to skip around, and the first thing I'm going to play is JSN talking about the same idea. Like, how is the defense, are they disguising everything pre-snap? Are they trying to make it look the same? And the question was like, are they trying to make it look the same every time? Is that what they're trying to do? And JSN, you're going to hear him struggle because he's trying to follow his PR guidelines of not giving away too much, but he still gives away a little.
I don't want to give out too much information, but nothing looks the same. Everything's different. Answer the question.
And he smiles. He's like, damn it, I guess I answered the question anyway. But he's like, everything looks different. Everything looks different. And this was another comment he had about the defense as well. Basically, what do you think of the defense?
I just remember last year Ravens. I didn't know what was going on out there, to be honest, and it's finally good to practice against that every day because it's very complicated. I can tell they disguise great, and for me to see that, I feel like it's just going to be easier once we play against other teams.
That's a fantastic soundbite. So that's JSN saying, I mean, you saw the Ravens game last year. I had no idea what was going on. Like, you don't hear that very often, right? I mean, he's like, I didn't know what was happening. And I don't think he was the only one. John Schneider talked about how he talked to some offensive players, and they were like, I don't know what was going on out there. And for what it's worth, JSN was one of the more effective offensive players in that game. But the fact is that, one, he is comparing what he's seeing in practice now to what he played against last year in that game, which is pretty cool. Like, that's what we want. Number two, the fact is that he is recognizing that getting the chance to go up against that every day is hugely beneficial to his development and to his preparation for, random things he's going to see in the NFL. This is probably one of the hardest defenses to prepare for. And if he can get really good at making some reads and getting good at understanding how things will play out, that's only going to accelerate his development against lesser defenses, right? So I think that was really, really cool to hear, and cool to hear that he recognizes that, and cool to hear that he feels that this way. He was asked earlier on, what does he think about this new offense? And he'll kind of talk here a little bit about Ryan Grubb.
We're working. We putting a lot of things in right now. It's looking explosive. I love it so far. A lot of opportunities to make plays, to run routes down the field, and just make plays. So I'm excited.
So Jason, talking about the new offense, and has anybody talked about this offense without saying that there's plays downfield? I mean, I think that basically everyone says vertical, downfield, explosive. Those are the three words or the three phrases that come up every time someone's asked to describe this offense. And he also did say, we're putting in a lot of things. And so I do still think that is the one area to keep an eye on. It's one thing to have a sophisticated offense. That can be great to have a lot of different answers for what defenses are doing to you. But if the players don't internalize it and they don't execute it properly, it can be really ugly. So it is going to be important to see that players do right in this more sophisticated offense than I guess what we kind of saw previously. Next question was about what are his biggest areas of growth from year one?
Yeah, during the off season, I just number one for me is getting bigger, faster, stronger, and I feel like I'm trending in the right direction. Still got a lot of work to do in that area, and overall, my whole game can just be more complete, and I can be better in all ways, especially just learning the playbook right now, and knowing the spots I need to hit. So I'm just figuring that out right now.
I think an underrated part of JSN's struggles in year one were a little bit on the playbook side, a little bit on the details side. There were some plays where he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, did not make the right read. And I have to admit, one of the things I wonder about when you hear about Geno Smith they want to see him grow with poise and maybe not be such a hothead during the games. And that there's been some comments that he's very good after the game about taking responsibility for for offensive struggles, but during the game, not doing that as well. The implication is that he is taking it out on some of his guys. There's a clip from last year. I remember early on in the season where JSN did run the wrong route and there was an interception, and Geno Smith came over and took, you heard him talking to JSN, who had his head kind of in his hands, and Geno was taking responsibility. It's like, hey, that's not on you, that's on me, blah, blah, blah. And so that's kind of my enduring image of how Geno leads. But maybe it wasn't like that. Maybe that was a exception. Maybe he was hard on a guy like JSN last year. Who knows? I don't. I'm not saying he was, but that might be an indication. He's got some comments here about Geno in a little bit I'll play, but I am kind of curious to watch that relationship continue to grow, and how they talk about each other throughout this year. Next, we got some thoughts from him about his rookie season and what he thought about it.
For me personally, a lot of I feel like it was a good foundation. I can grow from it. A lot of growing pains, a lot of ups and downs, but kind of similar from first years of in college and in high school, kind of the same thing, and I look forward and going into the second year, after completing a good off season and training camp, and just bounce and just going on from that. But last year, just not making the playoffs and not winning as many games as we wanted to, that didn't sit well with me, and so I'm looking for change this year.
So Jason's a guy that if you track his career at all, his second years, whether it's in college and high school and hopefully in the pros, are huge steps forward. And I think he's kind of referring to that a little bit, that there's an adjustment in his first year and he's looking for a big year two, which is great. But I think it's also interesting that he turned the question toward winning and not making the playoffs. I do think that speaks a little bit about who he is as a player. And there's a lot of guys that just talk about themselves, and I mean, I don't have a huge problem with that, but the fact that JSN's pretty focused on the winning part is a pretty good sign. I was happy he took it there, and I think bodes well for him making the changes that help the team the most, as opposed to just really wanting his own star to shine. Uh, Next from JSN, this was a question about the wrist injury and how much that actually affected him last year.
During last season, yeah, I would probably say it took me a couple games. I wore a cast for the first 2 games, but training staff did an amazing job here, and we got that covered and feel great now. Towards the end, middle in the season, I felt great, so it was good.
Yeah, so he starts by saying it was like he cast the first 2 games and felt better, but he really talks about towards the middle to the end of the season he felt great. I think that's the real answer, because that's when his performance changed considerably, and uh, you know, you can almost throw out a lot of the early part of that season. Um, but good to hear. Hopefully he's feeling good at this point in the season. Hopefully he can keep that going. Next question that he answered that I wanted to highlight was just like, what's his take on Ryan Grubb, and how is he putting him in position to make plays?
I mean, Coach Grubbs, just loving what I'm seeing right now. A lot of motions, a lot of just putting us in the right position to, make plays. Simple as that. And yeah, I'm with it. We're rocking and rolling right now.
So we've heard some mixed messages about how much motion is going to be used. Ryan Grubb used a ton of motion at UW, and there's been some statement that he's not going to use that much motion in the NFL, that it's going to be reduced, which I'd be a little disappointed in, because I think part of what really made Ryan Grubb's offense hum was just this motion that you've heard offensive linemen talk about. It creates angles for them in the run game. Again, it helps with pre-snap reads. It helps with, I think, motion in general is a very positive thing for offenses to utilize. And you hear from JSN here that they are using a lot of motion. So I liked hearing that. And you hear him feeling pretty good about how he's being utilized so far in this offense. Continuing kind of on that trend, question here about, are there any formation differences in terms of how he's being used?
Yeah, I'm just seeing Coach Grubbs and his creativity um, on the motions and how we're gonna line up and things like that. So it's definitely different. A lot of energy, and I feel good about it.
So again, he talks about the motions and then how they're going to be lined up. So yeah, I mean, I think formation, innovation, and motions going to be a big part of what they're doing on offense. Question about how confident he feels from his play in OTAs, and how that basically having a bunch of touchdowns in red zone drills, does that like give you more confidence? And here's what JSN had to say about that.
Going forward.
Oh yeah, I mean every day I feel like my confidence is building. Even if I don't score 7 touchdowns, or I try to tell the guys, good days, bad days, mediocre days, which we can't really have, which we don't want to have, but we have to use those days and just build to get better. And not every day is going to be like that. Not every day is going to be perfect, but I can use every day to challenge myself and to be better the next day.
So next from JSN here is comment about his comfort about playing outside, which I think is a worthwhile thing to know about his game.
Yeah, definitely. I always felt comfortable. Being on the outside, I feel like it's more of a one-on-one matchup, and I love one-on-one matchups. And being on the inside, there's some one-on-one matchups, a lot of zone, and just reading the defense and sitting in the zone, which I feel like I'm pretty good at. But when it's one-on-one, or being on the outside, it's more playground, a little bit, and that's what I like. I like challenge.
I think it's interesting hearing him talk about playing on the outside because I have a feeling he's going to get more opportunity to do that in this offense. That means that guys like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, others may play more inside at times. You know, that's part of this notion of everyone learning every position. And JSN did make a lot of plays when he moved outside last year. The game-winning touchdown against the Eagles, he was on the outside. It was not coming from a slot position. And I believe, I can't remember for sure, the play against the Ravens, I think he might have been outside. I'm not positive on that one. But in any event, people try to pigeonhole him as a slot receiver. I think he's more than that. And this is going to be increasingly important with Tyler Lockett, you know, winding down. And the potential, like, is JSN just going to be a slot guy and they need to get another outside guy? Or is he a guy that can take over for Tyler Lockett on the outside? So it'd be interesting to see how that functions overall. Next question I wanted to highlight was his thoughts about Devon Witherspoon.
Yeah, I think he's been doing an awesome job just being vocal. You know, I mean, to me, he looks like, you know, the captain of the defense, making sure everybody's lined up and just using his voice more, just leading into year 1 to year 2. And yeah, I mean, he's been great. He's a phenomenal player, you know, all pro. Um, you know, I'm a big fan of him. So just definitely excited to watch him take the steps, you know, physically. You know, he's getting bigger, he's getting faster, and just more comfortable, being smarter. He plays extremely fast. And, you know, we all know how physical he is, you know, in the run game or whoever has the ball. So, man, I'm glad he's on my team. You know, I get to go against him every day and, you know, can only get better from that.
Lot there about Devon Witherspoon, and I mean the glowing reviews continue, and his rookie teammate from last year, and you know, he called him an All-Pro. Obviously, he's not yet, but I think that's what's in Devon Witherspoon's future for sure. And this is a guy that just sees greatness coming from his teammate, and I think that's cool. I mean, you could just see how effusive he was, how generous he was in that praise, and I think that speaks highly of JSN as well. This next one I wanted to play is about his quarterback, Geno Smith, and so what are his thoughts about going into year 2 with Geno Smith?
Yeah, I think just having a whole season with Geno going into year 2, our communication is better. You know, there's some guys, you know, you can get on them, you can't get on them, and just, you know, our communication and what he wants from me is more clear than ever. And, you know, and me being a year 2 guy, we had a talk yesterday where, you know, I can use my voice and tell him, hey, this is what I'm saying. And, you know, I just think, you know, with that comes time and growth, and, you know, and it's been great so far. I just want to build on that and be the best we can.
All right, folks, 1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Just had to get the kid situated. He just woke up. So nice to wake up at 9 a.m. All right. Last thing, let's see. That was about Geno. And then Jaxon had some comments about the wide receiver room. I don't know that any of those were frankly that worth playing. But let's end on this. Let's talk about, he talks about how good can this offense be? And I think this is what I want to hear when someone's asked that question.
I mean, I think the potential is to be the best offense in the league. You know, why not us? You know, with the guys that we have, running back, quarterback, offensive line, getting right. And of course, receivers, we put a lot on our shoulders to be the best, especially, us three. That's something we, talk about a lot. And, why not us? We out here putting the work in the off season, and, we feel like we have a great opportunity. Coaches are putting us in the best opportunity to win. So it's all about, just doing it, executing. And, we know we have the guys to do that.
What are you learning about this?
So that's JSN talking about how good this offense can be. And he says it can be the best. Now, I love that. We've heard this why not us before. I mean, Russell used to say that quite a bit. I think that's fine. Like gets good. Like, let's be the best. But I think what changes is once you actually are performing that way, then it's not this question of why not us. It is, we are the best. And I'd love, obviously want to see them get to that level of confidence of, I think if you ask anyone, the Dolphins or the Chiefs or the 49ers, that question, they would say, we're the best. I mean, who's better than us? I mean, it's pretty clear that we're the best. And the Seahawks are in that point where they haven't answered that question even for themselves yet. But I do believe they have the potential to be one of the most productive offenses in this league this year. I think they've got the talent and the coaching to do it. Offensive line is the real question, but that's the thing to keep an eye on. I think if this offense can reach its potential, then we've really got a roster that's starting to come together in a way that can become something more than mediocre. So those were the comments I had from JSN and Devon Witherspoon that stuck out for me. And look, these are 2 first-round picks from 2023 that are going to be linked and just be crucial to the development of this roster and deciding whether this is a good team or a great team. And for them to both potentially be blue chip players, which I think they both have the potential to do, is a bellwether for this overall generation of Seahawks football to decide if they're going to be more than just, another average team or maybe above average team. Like they can be much more than that if those 2 guys become what I think they have the potential to become. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, what are you doing? Do it, please. Takes a second. I would appreciate it. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I'm Brian Nemhauser. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.